Anita here and welcome to Anita's Day Off, a show about, all the other stuff I do besides drawing. In this video we're going to be putting together this paper theater Kiki's delivery service papercraft that I've received from friends who just came back from Japan a while ago actually. And they brought me this adorable little thing and I'm absolutely mesmerized by it. As you know, I really love 3D art, and so I couldn't help myself and to put this thing together. So aside of the paper set, I suppose, I will be using some regular PVA white, well, no, it's not actually white, it's transparent glue. As you can see here, this is a little plate where I'm putting the glue on so that it's easier to maneuver. And then I will be using a couple of toothpicks, which for the little parts will be very handy. I will also be using an X-Acto knife. Now you don't necessarily need it, because you can actually take the pieces out without using one, but it's much easier with an X-Acto knife. So here I'm taking out all the pieces out of the little container. There is a little commercial, there is a very detailed instruction. You cannot go wrong if you're using the instruction. And in this little plastic envelope we have all the parts and all of them are numbered. And this is how they look like. They are so nicely cut out. I absolutely love them. As you can see here, I'm using the X-Acto knife to separate the paper pieces because they are held together by this little tiny notch of paper, and it's just much cleaner if you do it with an X-Acto knife. You just really need a little tiny, it's not even a cut, I kind of puncture the place where the notch is, I kind of push it against the paper and just releases it. And as you can see here, every single part is numbered. And you might think that it's actually really confusing later on if you have those tiny little parts, and by all means, if you are putting this kit together, then you can just leave them on the paper until you, for example, put together the plate number 3. But because of the little, well actually not so little, the very big instruction, it's very easy to figure out which part goes where, so I wasn't really afraid of losing any of them. And it's sometimes very hard to see the little notches. So you just have to kind of pick up the part and see it in a different angle. As you can see, sometimes I'm moving the parts around just because I was looking for the notches. They just disappear. Surprisingly enough, the darker parts were harder to see than the lighter ones. So here I'm putting the plate number 3 together and all the pieces labeled as 3. So it's really, really easy to see which ones are which. And you have all the steps on the instruction as well, so you don't really have to puzzle much. Taking a little bit of glue on that plate. As you can see, there's plenty of gunked up, dried off glue. And then I'm taking the parts in the same way that the instruction is telling me to, and I'm just covering them with a very, very thin layer of glue. And at first I was really putting a lot of glue there, but of course it's going to squeeze out from between the two parts, and you don't want that. So you also don't need that much glue because the pieces are rather sturdy but thin at the same time, so they don't need much to hold on to the other piece. So as long as you have some kind of good glue, this is not a piece that you'll be like moving around, it's just standing still, so it doesn't need much glue to actually attach. So here are the back of her eyes, and also the inside of her mouth. And when you turn around, you can see all the details with the red bits, the pink, and the brown. So then we're going to do her hair. And I always feel, because of my perfectionist nature, I really want to put all the glue on all the little hairs, but it's really not that necessary. As you can see, I'm also using tweezers that I did not list in the tools that I've been using, just because it very quickly became clear that I had to use tweezers. The pieces are just sometimes so small, it's very hard to hold onto them. And it's actually much easier just to use tweezers. So here's the first part of her broom. And I really like how these pieces just come together. At first you just see those shapes, but the more cutouts you add, the more the picture becomes apparent, and I absolutely love it. It's so fascinating to me just to see how it comes together, and also it's very satisfying to glue those pieces together. They're very the pieces themselves are rather thin, but once you put all the layers on top of each other, it really becomes very sturdy, you can almost feel like it's not paper just because of all the layers on top of each other. And it's very, very handy to just kind of move around. As you can see, I'm flipping the piece kind of upside down just to see how the layers come together at the edge. Because sometimes from the top you can see if you're a bit out of lines or not. And you really don't want to be out of lines because this piece is meant to be like watched on an angle, so not only flat. So you want the edges to be also neat and tidy. And this plate, actually this was the most complicated plate of all of them. I was really my patience was really wearing thin, to be honest, especially with that little radio there was so annoying to put on for some reason. Tweezers really helped with that. And then we have the highlights of her dress. It kind of separates Kiki from Gigi. And I actually, now that we are still gluing it together, I will mention that I'm actually not sure where you can get those sets. I know that the friend that was in Japan told me you can buy them pretty much everywhere there. But I couldn't really find them online. So if you actually have or know of a place where I could find them online, preferably that ships to Europe, I would be very happy if you could comment down below and tell me, because I would love to purchase more of those kits. As you can see when I'm kind of moving it around, how many layers come into this one plate. And as it gets thicker, it honestly doesn't feel that much like paper anymore. It just feels a little bit plasticky. It feels very sturdy. And we're finally moving to another plate. This is plate number 5. It's the background. And there aren't that many pieces in this one, just a rooftop and the tower roof. So here you can see me getting rid of one of the little pieces that didn't really pop out. And you can find them in some places there are just mistakes with the printing, or rather cutting, printing. Here's the clock tower. And I actually had quite a lot of problems figuring out where those pieces are supposed to go on this plate. Now we can very clearly see it on the instruction paper, but in reality you don't really see that many lines or guidelines where the roofs are supposed to go. But you can kind of puzzle it in because of all the little openings. This one was definitely the most tricky of all of them. And yeah, that's not really that tricky at all. It's just that you had to find the proper spot for it rather than it being like plainly obvious. And here we have the last one. And here's the last plate, which is the kind of back plate, I suppose. And you have to be very careful when you assemble it. The very first picture I've done, I put it backwards. And here are the frame pieces. It's also very important to notice that they're different sizes, something I didn't notice at the beginning either. There are 3 with one flat side, and then they are the rounded sides in bigger and smaller sizes. And the bigger ones are supposed to go at the bottom, and they're kind of the supports, the feet, if you may call it like that. And all of them have little arrows at the very end, and you're supposed to arrange them so that the arrows always point towards the front, so that all of them have the exact same distance between the little notches, because if you look closely, the notches have all different slits, different distances, and it's a little bit tricky getting the first thing attached, and it gets kind of getting used to it. As you can see here, I put one of those feet, quote unquote feet, in, and then I've decided to put the, let's say, the supportive piece that is kind of hidden because it doesn't attach the first plate. So I first worked on one side of the frame and then moved to the other because it was just way too flimsy and wanted to move around, and like this I could kind of keep it more in place. And all the pieces are together, like when they are placed like this, are very, very flimsy, so you want to be very careful when you put them together. But I had that urge to push them in despite knowing I shouldn't. As you can see, that front red frame plate is just bending so much. You can't see it in the finished product, but I'm not exactly the most patient person ever. And in comes the last bits. There's notches everywhere where the little frame pieces are supposed to go, so it's not really any big puzzle there. And there we go. So here's the finished product. Look how detailed that is. I just can't stop looking at it. The finished product is supposed to go into a little acrylic case that you can buy as well in Japan, but they're expensive and I didn't get them. So yeah, but it looks amazing. I'm so happy with it. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe if you would like to see more. It really, really helps me, especially since this is my new channel, and it just shows me that you guys want to see more. And stay tuned for more because I have another one coming out soon. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!